I've worked as a private investigator for around 5 or 6 years now, running my own business. It's usually a pretty bad idea to just up and start an independent PI company as your gateway to the job. In fact, you could say it's pretty darn stupid. But I live in a town small enough that I was able to make it work. My first year or so was pretty rocky as I tried to adjust to the job. But having a couple of friends in the field to give me pointers here and there definitely helped. I eventually began to hit my stride, and as my reputation increased, so did my client base. I won't be specific about where I live, nor will I use any real names. As a PI, people come to me with some pretty personal stuff, and it's universally taboo to just go sharing the specifics with the world. The extent that I'll admit is that I'm in Canada and that I'm in a small, semi-remote town surrounded by vast boreal forest. Not the kind that you'd go exploring or hiking through with friends, but the kind that you'd stay away from because, much like the stereotype, there are bears and caribou all over the place. Trust me, caribou will mess your day up seriously bad. So with that little bit out of the way, I suppose I'll start. I tend to get a lot of cases from paranoid spouses, and most I'll take. However absurd, I'm in no position to turn down a paying customer. And when they turn out to be correct, it always feels good to help them out with an unfaithful partner. This case, despite having a reasonably explainable conclusion, was creepy enough to have definitely caused me to think a little more about what to accept and what to decline. Roughly 2 years ago, I get a cold call from what sounded like an older man. He asked to make sure he called the right place, and when I told him he had, he immediately launches into a particularly long-winded rant about how his wife is plotting against him, and how she's going to take him out. I try to get him to calm down and ask when he would be able to come over to the office so we could discuss things over coffee, what he should bring, hash out whether or not this is a legitimate case, and if so, negotiate a fee. He's adamant that he needs to see me as soon as possible, so he comes a couple hours later. I don't have any cases at the time, so I'm all for it. He's an older gentleman in around his late 50s, early 60s, and is visibly shaken when he shows up. We talk for a little while as he definitely calmed down by this point, but he's still obviously frightened. He tells me that his wife has been going out to meet with other elderly women for a sort of book club type deal, and that he's sure that they're all out for his blood. Things get really interesting when he reveals that every morning, around 4 a.m., he wakes up to an abnormally loud sound, like dogs barking and growling frantically. He tells me that he always wakes up to see his wife standing in the bedroom doorway, and 2 other elderly women resembling a few of her friends are always standing motionless behind her, making no movements, just staring. The creepy part is that his wife is still in bed with him, sleeping. They don't move as long as he doesn't, but he tells me that as soon as he does anything noticeable, they stumble off before he has a chance to put his glasses on. The few times he had gone to check, he found his back door opened, but never anything else out of place. I'm a little weirded out and at first think it may be sleep paralysis, but the fact that a previously closed door is open and that he's able to easily move rules that out. I ask if he has a carbon monoxide detector in his room. He tells me he does and that it hasn't ever gone off. I ask about things like his address, when his wife usually leaves, when he usually leaves, the location of her book club, pictures of his wife, her friends, things like that. We come to an agreement, I take the case, and he goes on his way. I head off to his place that night and park my car on his street in a location where I can see his front door, and the gate leading into his backyard. I set up my camera and turn on a podcast. I have to be there before he goes to sleep to ensure I don't miss anything, since it's possible they could arrive before 4 a.m. I'm out there for around 6 hours with no signs of activity. The roads are dark except for the dim country streetlights that are more or less barren. There's this almost piercing feeling of silence and isolation, not unlike the town had suddenly become entirely deserted, like I'm the only living thing outside on that night. My podcast had long ended, and a permeating essence of dread made me turn the music I was listening to off. 3:30 a.m. sharp, and almost as if on cue, the sound of dog barking nearly gives me a heart attack. What's worse is how incredibly loud and oddly discordant it is. That is, it's odd until I realize that it's multiple dogs, as if every dog on the block started barking in eerie unison. This is when I catch a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror. 2 small shriveled figures and one taller, all slowly stumbling across the sidewalk, all clad in white dresses, appearing so suddenly it's like NPCs had just entered my draw distance. The tint on my windows ensures they don't notice me as they pass by, but I'm nonetheless silent as a mouse, deathly afraid that one might peer over into my window as they pass. Their footsteps echo as they pass my car, and as they do, my blood runs cold. It is not, in fact, 3 old ladies. It is 2 old ladies dragging along one lifeless, stark white mannequin, rigid like a corpse fresh from the grave, and dressed as the old man's wife. I try to shake myself out of my daze and begin to take a few pictures with one camera and video of them on another. Sure enough, they turn right down his driveway, their mannequin in tow, and one of them unlocks the back gate, vanishing from view. I check the footage and pictures to make sure they're clear. Trying to get over the horrid bizarreness of the whole situation, I try and think of something since it's obviously not a good idea to just leave the old couple there with a pair of creepy old ladies who's probably suffering from dementia or something. Since it appears they're usually watching him for a half hour or so, I assume there's probably no intent to harm him, but one can never be sure. I pull up my cell and call his phone, hoping to try to drive them out. A few minutes later, they're shambling away down the street, mannequin grinding against the pavement. I wait until they're out of view before letting out a breath of relief. The guy doesn't initially believe me when I tell him what happened, but when I show him the pictures and video, he goes pale. Despite the definite creep factor involved, he reacts instead by letting out the deepest sigh of relief I think I've ever heard. He mumbles something and I can see tears starting to run down his cheeks. He smiles a little and thanks me, saying that he has to apologize to his wife for not trusting her and not talking to her about it first. I'm not entirely sure what happened after, but I assume he took the photos to someone, as the visits stopped happening after that. I'm not sure of the details, but apparently the women had pretty much gone off their rockers due to old age. His wife had given one of them keys in case they ever wanted to come over. I honestly don't understand the logic behind this one, other than she's old, I guess. Either way, I believe the 2 of them are in a home of some kind and the husband made up with his wife pretty easily. I have plenty more where that comes from, and from here on out, it only gets weirder. Hey, thanks for checking out my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. I'd like to thank user Aestus-Estus from the nosleep subreddit for allowing me to read this story. You can find a link to the original story and more in the description below. In order to help this channel grow, remember to send me a story that you'd like me to read or talk about. Just send me an email with the link or the info and make sure to give me permission to use the story. Remember to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed it. Thanks and look forward to the next one.